Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast.
Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Welcome once again, friends, to the Gone to the Dog podcast. Steve Fielder here, coming to you on Election Day. Of course, you won't be hearing this podcast until November 11th, which will be Veterans Day. But as I'm recording here with my buddy Mark Miller from Taylorsville, North Carolina, it is Election Day. And I don't know if there's anybody out there in the podcast sphere that doesn't know where I stand in this presidential election. I'm going to just lay it all out there for you. I'm a Trumper, 100%. I voted for Donald Trump this morning because I believe he's the man that we need for this point in time in our history. And I saw just today, since we're on a podcast, the guy that gets more listeners than anybody in the world on his podcast, Joe Rogan, endorsed Trump. Now, Rogan had been kind of holding back and hadn't said who he endorsed for president, but he's come out for Trump. So I guess we're in good company. We are one of the most, if not the most popular of all the hound-related podcasts. I don't say that to brag. It's just we watch the numbers and the standings and so forth, and appreciate every one of you that listen to us each week. And it's kind of cool to be associated with the guy that gets more listeners than anybody in the world. Of course, there's a few thousand difference between what Joe Rogan gets and what I get. But at any rate, Election Day, it's no use for me to tell you to vote because that voting will be all over by the time you get this, listen to this podcast. But today I wanted to go down, or up in my case, to Taylorsville, North Carolina, to my buddy Mark Miller. He's my partner. He and I have had a lot of fun with a plot dog. But Mark, just wanted to get you on, talk about what's going on with you, and catch up on bear pen fever and anything else you want to talk about. How you doing today, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing well on this rainy November day. You're
actually getting rain.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, back for a long time there, you were dry as a desert, weren't you?
Yeah, we was dry and then we got that hurricane, then we was flooded, and then it ain't rained until now since the hurricane. So.
Yeah, the weather has indeed been crazy this year. I just got back from a trip up to western Pennsylvania. And the week that we're recording this, the podcast I did with Randy Smith at Lone Pine Kennels is airing. And while we were up there, trust me, it was bone dry. I mean dry. I've never seen the woods so dry when I've been up there. It almost looked like spitting snow out there, you know, when you'd look out through the window of the side-by-side as we went up, you know, one of those lanes or trails or whatever. But so it's been a crazy year, and with extremes in drought and extremes in water, which has totally devastated very much of the part of the world that you live in. Now, how did you come out around Taylorsville there in the flood overall?
We just had some trees down, some roads closed, but nothing like more western got. We were very lucky this time.
Yeah. Well, you and I were talking a little bit yesterday, back and forth, texting. about the American Plot Association's breed days that they hold each year in Greenville, Tennessee in March. And I think you'd asked me if I was going, and my answer was yes, if the Lord's will, and I'd love to go this year. I didn't get to go last year, did have a great time the year before. But I'm wondering if everything is going to be back in shape and the roads back so that we can travel around in that part of the world, because right there near where Breed Days is held is some of the worst of the flooding there along the Nolichucky River in that area. But you've got a friend over there I believe you've been talking to a little bit, haven't you?
Yeah, he said several bridges are out. It was just going to take a little more time to get around, because you're having to go way out of your way to get on another road to come back.
Mm-hmm.
But you could get around. A lot of cornfield bottoms are destroyed. They're just like, he said, they're just full of sand now, but don't know how the planting season's going to go or how they're going to get that fixed. Or how the hunting's going to be. But he said he's treating coons a little bit. Now he's trying to stay up out of the river bottoms from all the damage, but we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out.
Well, my friend Tracy Jones, T.L. Jones, who I had on the podcast back in middle September, he's been kind of keeping me posted on things. He lives there in Greenville, not that far from where Breed Days is held. And he told me at the onset of this thing that he knew a dairy farmer there in that area. I think he said he had like 160 acres, maybe somewhere under 200 acres, bottomland, a dairy farm, and he had no soil anymore. It was all washed down to the bedrock. So basically his farm washed away. You can't plant much on a rock.
No.
The Bible says that Jesus planted his church on the rock. But what do you do when you get that kind of situation? I mean, well, we've talked about it a lot on this podcast, and we certainly, our thoughts and prayers. And, there's been a tremendous outpouring of aid to those people in those areas. And really appreciate the coon hunters that have stepped up, those who have sent, hay for livestock, dog food, whatever, and wintertime coming on now. I imagine, the clothing and warm clothes and shelter, man. I mean, the basic. Yeah. How would you, what would it be like to all of a sudden go back to where you were like the caveman? Think about it. I mean, you have nothing. You don't have a house. You don't have a car. You don't have any animals. Only clothes you have is what's on your back and what food, Of course, little by little, that's been being addressed, and I'm sure that people's basic needs are being met now, but it's just a horrible thing.
No, I couldn't imagine what some of them people are going through.
No, but our heart goes out to them, that's for sure. And we've tried, and we've tried through this podcast to post, on social media, any news that we can, locations of churches and whatnot, like Tracy's church over there, Appalachian Bible, our Baptist church in Greenville over there. That's, done a tremendous amount of work. Tracy sends me photos almost daily, and he's, here they bought a chainsaw for somebody. Here they contributed $2,500 for somebody toward, getting a place to live, and just on and on and on. But, well, that's certainly been something none of us have ever seen or anticipated. But along that line, you've kind of got a little setback here that you didn't anticipate with the hunting season coming along. You know, I know some of the people probably on social media have been wondering where you are and Fever is and what you guys have been doing. What's been going on, Mark?
Well, I've come up with a back injury, and it has really set me back. I am trying to recover now, waiting on an MRI at the end of November to see what kind of damage is done. They're still here, he's in the pen. Wife takes care of him, feeds him. That's how bad it is. I don't even get to feed him now. I have this week got to go to the lot and sit with him and pet him, but my mobility is limited right now. I am getting better, getting some movement back. Plan on getting better. Have not got to hunt no bear season. I've been offered to go sit. You know, Brad, great guy, offered to let me just come out and sit and listen. But I know if I was out there, I'd get out of the truck and there I'd be. So I know it's best I don't show up.
Well, you know, Mark, as I was thinking about us doing this podcast today, and I asked you beforehand, you know, if you mind we discuss this, but I guess I got to thinking, you know, in my own situation, mine's just due to old age, you know. I'm slowing down, no doubt about it, although the week that I spent in Pennsylvania, I felt better than I have felt in literally years. I mean, I was able to walk to most of the trees. Of course, Randy Smith was easy on me. We hunted a lot of farm country while I was there and not quite so many steep woods and so forth. But, you know, as you get older, you realize that how much of a young man's sport this is. And it's difficult. And there's some trees that I'll admit, I'd say, well, you go ahead and I'll holler you back out because it's just kind of too rough. But when it comes to a young man like you, I know some days you probably don't feel young, but you are. And in the, you know, kind of the middle of your life, to have something like this can really be a backset, can it? I mean, no pun intended, but can really hit you, can it?
Oh, yeah. It's been tough this time. I've been out missing all the hunting, and yeah, I'm mainly one-on-one with Fever. I love having him out, just me and him. That's how we hunt about 95% of the time.
Yeah.
I miss being out with just him. That's been hard, just to sit here and watch that all go down. But I do plan on, as long as I don't have to have surgery or anything, being at the Grand American.
Yeah.
I probably will have to sit out the Grand American, but I'll be there.
Yeah.
With Fever. Be in the stud barn if anybody wants to come by and see us. But I will probably set out the Grand American depending on what happens with my back. But I am definitely going to be sitting out till December the 2nd before I know anything how this is going to outcome. But
yeah,
I do plan on being at the Grand American.
Well, that's good, and I'll look forward to seeing you then. I really don't have any plans, you know, or if I had plans to come up and hunt with you this fall, of course, you know, we'd have to put those on hold. But things happen for a reason, and I don't know what the reason would be, but maybe you just need to rest. You and Fever have gone at it really hard. He started early for you, and by 13 months old, he was already a night champion. And you kind of didn't look back. You know, you kept him busy or he kept you busy. I don't know which, but I know how many nights you were out there with him. just like you said, just the two of you. He's been a dog of I imagine for you as for me, one of those lifetime hounds that just comes along, once in a great while, if at all, and one that just wants, to give you 100% every time you unsnap him. And to see a dog like that and see him operate, and I posted this week, well, I guess I was feeling my oats a little bit, but I said, if titles don't mean anything to you, just go out there and try to get you some. See if you can go out there and make you a Grand Night champion or a Grand Show or a Grand Water, Grand Field, a PKC champion, an HTX, all things that he's done. Just pick any one of those and go after it and see how easy it is. It is not easy. And, I want to encourage anybody out there that's got a good dog to take them out to the events. Not only will it prove to the world what you have on the end of your leash, you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy seeing your dog achieve, and excel. What's been your thoughts about Fever over these last 3 years about in that regard,
He just loves to accelerate, especially in competition. He likes to please me, and he is an extraordinary dog. And I don't lead him. When I get done with the hunts, he treats a coon. I pet him. I say, "Come on, let's go." He quits, and he walks with me to the truck. He's the best handling hound I've ever owned.
Yeah. Well, Mark, it gets back to what you said earlier, and this is not just we're not going to spend an hour just blowing this dog up. But what he's done, and it's a matter of record. It's there for anybody to see if they want to. But I just want for the listeners to think about how they would like their dog to perform, how they would like to be able to bond with a dog the way you and Fever have, and how that takes the sport, to the next level. And we'll give old Brandon White a little plug here. You're feeding his next level dog food now. Mm-hmm. But it does. It takes it to a next level. And, I've got a Fever pup here at the house. And he's going to be, I think he's about 14 and a half weeks old now or something soon will be. And, these dogs are performance dogs. They're not for the weak of heart. They will hunt. They will go. They've got a lot of energy. But they do, just like you said there, they know how to shut it down. They know how to listen to you if you've been consistent with them, And I know Fever's been a handful when he's a pup. He's a young dog. He was, as you said, jacked up all the time, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But he is really coming into himself now. Just turning 3. I can watch. My wife goes out there to feed him. He's got 100 by 100, something like that, lot that he gets turned loose in every day, and he just runs freely in it. But when she goes out there, he don't jump on her. He just trots beside her. He knows what kennels he is. Goes straight in. She feeds him. She shuts the door, and he's there.
Right.
He's well mannered with her. He doesn't want to jump on me because he's happy to see me, but
yeah. But you're his alpha. You're you're the man. And, well, the point I want to make here is not. They're not, the listeners out there are not going to get our dog. They're not going to get Fever. We're not going to let him go. I know you aren't. No. But they can listeners, you can do this with your own dog. you can put in the extra time. And just like this pup here, went up to John Sapier's and got him. He had a few issues at first with digestive problems, and I believe we've got that turned around. And it turns out that he was allergic to chicken in his feed. Randy Smith called a veterinarian friend of his, a longtime friend, somewhere in the South, and I can't remember the guy's name or actually the state, but talked to him about it, and he said, well, it sounds like the dog has a food allergy. And I was feeding him ProPlan chicken and rice for puppies, and he said change off his feed, change him to something else, to beef or lamb or salmon or something like that instead of the chicken. Well, as soon as I got home, I did that, and since I've been home now, I guess 4 or 5 days, he hasn't thrown up one time. And I noticed him; he would kind of scratch at himself. He didn't have, fleas. He didn't have any sores, but he was itching. His skin was itching. So I got the ProPlan for sensitive skin and digestion, I believe. I don't know exactly. The salmon and rice formula. Of course, he loves it. I mean, it. And you don't get quite as firm a stool with it as you do with the chicken. But it looks like we got him turned around. I mean, he'll still occasionally he'll drink a lot of water and he'll kind of belch it up, and there'll be just water, But as far as that, throwing his dinner back up, he's not doing that at all. He's starting to put on weight, and he's, he learns. You can teach him a lot of things, and I haven't started him with a lot of obedience yet. He sits and stays at the door when I want to take him out. He knows to come when I call him. Haven't tried. He's not going to be a big dog. He's I forget what we weighed him at the vet. He's getting up there all pretty close, I think, to 30 pounds now. But anyway, just spending that time with the dog. You don't have to bring him in the house. It is a challenge to bring a hound in the house to, regulate their energy a little bit. But it's just like any other puppy, they are puppies and they're going to chew things and all, and you just work with them day to day. But it's been great, and I think go ahead.
I'm with you, absolutely. If you want your dog to perform on the next level, you need to spend time with him. Spend the extra time, all the time you can with him. In-house training is good for a hound. A lot of people can't do that, but just spending time in the yard with him
exactly
means a lot to a dog. That and as far as your food stuff, I have seen a dog never could figure out what was wrong with him with that ear infection,
and
it turned out to be he was allergic to corn.
Yep,
and that's what's in a lot of dog foods, and that ended up being what was wrong with him. But it was too late when finally somebody figured it out. It was too late for the dog. But that was in a hound too of my buddies of mine. And if your dog's having a problem and you can't figure it out, look into the dog food. You might be feeding a high-end dog food, but feed a different formula of that high-end dog food and see if it goes away, because there's a problem.
Exactly.
It ain't the dog food's problem. It's something the dog's allergic to in that product, and you need to maybe go to the salmon line or the beef or the chicken, get away from corn or go to corn. It all moves around.
Yeah. Well, a lady at the pet food store where I buy food, sometimes I usually buy my feed at Tractor Supply. But she says, if a dog is going to be allergic to meat, it's most likely going to be chicken. And if they're going to be allergic to the grain and whatever, it's most likely going to be corn. And
Yeah.
apparently something with the digestibility of those products, you know. And there again, some dogs get along great with it, you know, and all, but that's what I think began to learn with these dogs a few years ago. And it's kind of like this thing with thyroid. You know, we didn't know what was wrong with some of these dogs until we started talking about thyroid or started talking about tick-borne illnesses, you know, like Ehrlichia and things like this. We didn't know, you know, well, but we do have resources available now. So if you've got a dog, you know, that seems, this dog, when I got him, he had a hookworm infestation. And, you know, John Sapier, who was his breeder, had already recognized it and was beginning to treat it when we got him. And I just thought, well, you know, his digestive system's a little messed up because of worms. But I honestly believe, unless the last few days has got me fooled, that it was the chicken that was his problem. So he's starting to put on weight now and growing straight up. He's going to be long-legged, and it's kind of like Fever was. You know, when Bill Schenniger first told me about Fever there, excuse me just a second. He said, you know, I don't think he's going to be very big. Well, Fever turned into a nice-sized hound. You know, I really wouldn't want one any bigger than he is. And so it's strange how these pups, you know, how they go through stages and how they grow or don't grow. But anyway, you know, if we can be helpful to somebody out there that's experiencing some of these kind of issues, that's why we're talking about them, you know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And as far as your pup, time he gets a year old, he might not have to eat that dog food no more. He could grow out of that.
Yeah,
and,
that's true. That's true. Uh-huh.
Because he's awful young and his stomach might not have developed right when he's a puppy or when he was being in the womb, and might grow right out of that and be fine.
Yeah.
Like I say, Fever was small, they thought, but now he averages between 60 and 65 pounds at every vet trip now.
Just perfect in my view. I mean, that's the size I like.
I think he's a perfect size plot hound. You know, he's built right as a plot to me. I think he's perfect size for a bear, coon, whatever. And he obviously, his size don't matter where you're really big or not because he can freaking fly. And he's proved that in all the field trials.
Yeah, he can stretch them out. That's for sure.
He can move.
I wish my dad had lived to be able to see him because Dad loved speed in a hound. He liked them to be houndy. He liked them to have hound head on ears and all that, but he wanted them to have legs under them. And he didn't want to be behind in the bear race when they crossed the road or when they got to the tree. So, yeah. And, you know, that gets back again to these events that you're totally responsible for that, for entering them into water races and field trials. And is that, you know, it lets the dog demonstrate the tools that, or you know, use the tools that he's given that he uses out there in the woods anytime you turn him loose, you know. And I don't know if you'll ever have the nerve to turn him loose on a bear or not, but I know I've followed enough bear dogs in my life. I know he'd be a good one. I know he would.
Oh, I know he'd be a good one, but after seeing one of Brad's dogs on one of the opening days, I don't know if I can do it now.
Yeah, yeah.
She got tore up. Well, she looked like Frankenstein now, but
Now,
It was bad.
Brad Hyatt is your buddy that you're talking about there. And, of course, Brad is North Carolina State Trooper, I believe, still, is he not?
Yeah, he got about one more year to go.
Yeah. And he lives in bear country, and he is a bear hunter, and he's got plot dogs. Some of them are crossbreds. But now I saw him on, maybe we can help him out a little bit here. Doesn't he have a dog missing right now?
Yeah, or Saturday, they run a bear. They were all together. And she come up, don't think she's hurt, just think she got off to herself. And she hasn't come out of the woods around Lenore, Caldwell County. And she's still missing.
Okay, now
her name is,
go ahead.
Her name's Jenny. If you see her, she's a little dark colored. She's a smaller plot. Should have a tracking collar on, and his name tag's on it.
Mm-hmm. So. And her name is what again?
Jenny.
Jenny. Okay, boys, over there in North Carolina around Lenore and that area, if you see a dark-colored brindle dog with a tracking collar on her, get a hold of Jenny and get a hold of Brad Hyatt. What town does he live in?
He lives in Caldwell County, right out of Lenore also.
Okay. So anybody, I'm sure, can put you in touch. And he is on Facebook, and that's Brad Hyatt, Hyatt. Yeah.
She's turned loose for close to his house, so big block of woods in there, massive game land. But
yeah.
She should come out somewhere, and it's kind of odd that she hasn't.
Right. Yep. Well, let's hope the best, and back in the old days before we had tracking collars, it was nothing for us to lose one for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And I think they just run till they, run themselves out. They're tired and they lay down. We had one called Fancy that she would eat acorns in the woods. When she'd come out, she'd have acorn hulls in her stool, but they'll finally get hungry enough that they'll come downhill and come into a house somewhere, is usually what happens. If you're a mountain hunter, you know what I'm talking about. Well, okay, you mentioned the Grand American, and that will be coming up the first weekend after New Year's. It always is that time. In Orangeburg, South Carolina, one of the biggest gatherings of coon hunters in the whole country, maybe the biggest as far as the crowd's concerned. And I had Jimmy Meeks on the podcast just a couple weeks ago, and we talked about Grand American, how he enjoys going every year, and hopefully you'll be feeling well enough by then, you and old Fever can go to Hellhole Swamp.
I always do for some reason.
Yeah, that's kind of a running joke down there. Nobody wants to go to Hellhole, which you can imagine with a name like that. It's not probably green pasture fields and golf courses.
It's very fitting for it.
Yeah. Matches up good. Well, you talked a little bit about breed days, and I don't know, there's a lot of different directions we could go here. We've gotten in about 35 minutes already, Mark, and I know that you're probably not feeling the best, and I don't want to keep you too long, but I've got a big week this week as we're recording tomorrow. My family from up in the land of Lincoln, my son and his wife and my granddaughter are coming down to spend a few days. And the granddaughter's been talking about nothing but going fishing with Grandpa. So I guess I'm going to be out there trying to show Chloe how to catch some of these saltwater fish off a pier here. And so anyway, looking forward to that big time. Not doing a lot otherwise. Planning, as I said, to go to to the White River with Nub and Moore again this year, the weekend after Thanksgiving. And guys that are thinking about going to White River, I get this question a lot, Well, I had a fella just this week, yesterday, in fact, asked me. He said he talked to somebody out there, and they said there was a bunch of rain up in northern Arkansas, and that by the opening date of White River, which I don't know exactly what the date is. It's usually around the 15th of November is when the North Unit opens. But so that's not very long. In fact, that'll only be a week or so from the time this podcast airs, that he had heard by somebody there at Maddox Bay that had a lot of rain up north and that they were going to probably end up, the refuge would be flooded. Well, that has a lot of different meanings. That place can flood and you can still hunt it. But if it floods to the point, I believe, of 28 feet on the gauge there at St. Charles, which is where we stay, then they will close the refuge down. But right now, the flood stage or the river stage is only 6 feet, and I've never seen it that low. It was, been 8 or 9 feet. I don't remember what it was when you were out there with me, Mark, a couple years ago. But so anyway, what the whole point of that is, go online and check the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers website for St. Charles, Arkansas, and see what the flood stage is there and whether it's rising or falling. They put a little line graph on there day to day where you can see the levels. So, if it's getting up there around that upper 20s and all, you might want to rethink. But if it doesn't get to that point, you can still hunt. It might be a little more difficult to get around. You'll have some dogs get behind water on you at times, make it a little challenging. In our party, we've had situations where we've had to call on our buddy fisherman John Storts and get him out of bed with his boat to go help us get a dog. Did that happen when you were out there with Jamie Perrin's dog?
Yeah.
You might have been
Trey
with
and
him.
him. No, I wasn't with him. We were hunting. I think me and you and Nubbin was hunting that night together when Trey's dog got down off a riverbank and had to get in a boat and go get it.
That's it. He was down under a riverbank deal where you couldn't get to him. Some of those banks have eroded out, and they're just basically straight down, and you just can't negotiate them, unless you come in from the water side. So, well, I
think when we were out there, it was at 12 or 14 foot.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad as far as around the water, but it's definitely muddy out there, but it wasn't, as far as getting through the woods, you wasn't walking water.
Right.
They were water holes, but you could walk through the flatlands. It wasn't underwater by no means.
Well, I'll have to say this, and some will agree with me and some won't. But I have seen a gradual but steady decline in the quality of the hunting at the White River over the last few years. When Nubbin first invited me out, and I went out in 2010, which is for this year that was my first year, and then this year will actually make 15 years. There was a vast difference in the hunting in those days and what it is now in numbers of coon. People complain about more hunters, and I guess on the South Unit when it first opens up, there is a lot of hunters. You and I saw that a couple of years ago. But man, my first few years going out there was dogs open. You could hear dogs in any direction at any time. Now you don't. You don't really see as many hunters or hear as many dogs, but you're also, for the most part, I know you can get in pockets of them and really get after them, but for the most part and overall, I don't believe that the coon are there the way they were at one time. And I talked to some of the local people there that will tell you this, that will agree with me. So anyway, it's still a beautiful place. If you like hunting big timber bottoms, I know for you there was too much mud. And there is
Yeah.
mud. There's
Mm-hmm.
no doubt about it. But there's also high ground. And I guess that's kind of, I'm reverting back to that too. In the early days, it just seemed like every one of those four-wheeler trails was just like going back to a big plantation somewhere. You know, all that big oak timber and wide open woods and no briars and thickets and all of that. And it's still there. It's still there, but just not to the degree that it used to be. If you disagree with me, post me up on Facebook or whatever and let me know your thoughts on that, because I'm certainly not an authority. But after 15 years of hunting out there in the row, I have kind of learned a few things about it. So apparently people think I know because I get texts and calls and everything all the time from people to tell me how you do it, where do you stay, you know. And that's another thing I can mention briefly. Staying out there is not easy, and it's getting tougher. We just lost our lodge that we've been staying in for the last 4 years. It's been sold, and don't have a clue about the new owner or what they plan to do with it or anything. So, but our buddies out there, Morris and I suppose Randy, anyway, they've kind of hustled around and found us a cabin, and so I think we'll be okay for at least this year. But anyway, that's enough about the White River, but that's coming up right away by the time you listen to this podcast. If you're going, you better have your bags packed. Mark, what about coon hunting in your area? Do you think it's going to be pretty good this year? Is there a lot of mast? Is it looking like a good year? I know you can't get out there right now, and that's a bummer, but are your buddies telling you anything about it?
Far as I'm seeing, we got game cameras out. We're seeing a ton of bear.
Yeah.
The bears are going to be probably even thicker next year because what them guys are telling me that's walking the woods is in the bear areas. It's rough. A lot of blowdown.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And,
That's all going to be in favor of the bears and not the hunters.
Oh,
Just,
yeah. Steve said he couldn't close the distance last weekend. He said he's seen the bear 3 times, but there's so much blowdown he couldn't keep up and try to cut the bear off.
Mm.
And he was on when it got close as far as trying to keep up with them. But Brad even says it's thick. He said it's bad. So that'll be a plus for more bears next year, but it's still going to be the same.
Yeah.
The woods won't be as thick next year, but it'll definitely going to be a plus for the bears. And I would say that would make a plus for the coon.
Sure.
Also.
Sure. Well, I remember several years ago when Hurricane Hugo hit the East Coast down in South Carolina and in that area. It devastated coon hunting for a number of years because of all the blowdowns. You know, you simply can't get through the woods. And we don't think about that always. You know, of course, we think about the people first and their loss of their homes and their access, you know, in and out of the mountains. But these, you know, the woods, when those storms come and lay all the timber over. We had a situation up in Pennsylvania last week where it was very unusual, and I've hunted up there, I guess for maybe 5 years now, that coons were going in the ground. And at first I was kind of saying, are the dogs, getting off on a groundhog track or a possum or something? Every opportunity that the hole was big enough that you could either hear or see in there or whatever, it was a coon in there. But one time it was in a big, a tree had just blown over the root ball and all. And I imagine it's probably from some of that high wind that came on through. And the coon was back in there in that root ball. So there's going to be all kinds of places for game to get away, but not good. It's not looking good. And I imagine some of those mountains along that North Carolina, Tennessee line will never recover from it in our life, certainly not in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Well, not a big old warm fuzzy outlook, it looks like, but we're going to try to do this thing as long as we can. Have you got any reports on our puppies that our dog has produced out there that are doing anything?
I've seen Lucas posted that one. His dog, they opened on track the other night. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. And
Jolene?
these pups are just coming 4 months old. They're not quite 4 months old yet.
John's litter, I seen one. His was going with the bear dogs deep.
Yeah, he took him to bear hunting. I guess he probably. I don't know if he's hunting there in South Carolina or he went to West Virginia. He sometimes goes over to West Virginia, but yeah. Well, this rascal I got here, of course, we're eat up with squirrels around here in this part of Florida. And I haven't live trapped one yet, but I'm going to see what kind of rodeo we can get into. But when I take Boo on his morning walks around the neighborhood, he trees the squirrels. If he sees them, boy, he takes off. Now he's always tracking them on the ground, but if he can see one, oh man, it's on. So. He'll be all right. He's checking those trees all the time. And if you look up, he's looking up,
Mm-hmm.
He's fun right now.
The other Jolene pup, that Keenan.
Yeah, Keenan Ruddy.
His dog looks like it's doing very well on some drags.
Yep.
Long drags in the woods, finding them, treeing them.
Well, we talked.
Jerry.
Yeah.
Price's dogs are the youngest, and I've seen them, teased with a hide nail tree, and they'll run that thing down, find it. They're very outgoing also. So
yeah,
I look for big stuff out of Jerry's pups too.
Yeah. Well, that's you gotta. All you can do as a breeder is hope that your dogs get in the hands of hunters. And I know people probably say, well, you're raising yours in a house down in Florida. How's that dog going to ever make anything? Well, I promise you, he's going to get the opportunities. As he gets ready, he's getting little baby steps right now, but he'll get the opportunity to go. In fact, I'm going to take him to White River with me in, about 3 weeks, right after Thanksgiving. And, and I'll watch him. But I had that cruise dog, the Walker dog, and he was just 4, not quite 5 months old when I took him the first time. And he was out there running tracks. And it was kind of funny. I think it was Morris's dog that treated coon. Maybe it was Nubbin's too. And I just walked him in on a leash. And as soon as he got fairly close to that tree, he threw that head in the air. He must have smelled that coon. And he kind of walked on his back legs all the way into that tree and just treed his head off, the very first time. So, it's fun to work with puppies. And,
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to that a lot. And I would tell any of the listeners out there, if you've got the opportunity, do your research, get your dog from, a good dog, a good female is vitally important. And when I look at the pedigrees on these females that got bred to fever, they were from good stock. And they were, and they were hunting dogs. They weren't just, nothing wrong with show dogs. I love a good dog show. But I look at the puppies, this pup that I've got, of course, I'm most interested in that pedigree because I've got one of got some tremendous plot Grand Night Champion dogs on his mother's pedigree, So that all means a lot. And of course, we like the Lazarus dogs from Bill Shenninger, and of course that's what fever is. And so, but just do your homework, guys, and you want a nice puppy, don't settle. Don't settle for run-of-the-mill or whoever's got the cheapest, because the cheapest is not the best in the long run. Always better to pay just a little bit more and get quality, don't you think, Mark?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Well, I think I talked so much up there on that trip to Pennsylvania that I talked myself out. And most people listening say, yay, that's a good thing. Well, I don't know. Go ahead. Obviously, you got something.
I watched you on the Pennsylvania trip. It looked like an awesome trip. I did notice how dry it was in some of your videos. I was like, is it raining? But looked like, I reckon it was dust particles and bugs.
That's what it was. It was.
Just swarming. I was like, man, it's dry up there.
When you would drive the side-by-side, back, or maybe you drive across a cut-over bean field or cornfield and pull up to a woods. Because a few nights there we went out to farm country, more typical farm country than what Randy has. Randy's got hills, and he's got small cornfields and so forth. But man, I took a few pictures and it didn't really tell the whole tale. I mean, it was really dry, and just that goldenrod and all that stuff, was just everywhere. I mean, and I'll brag a little bit on Randy's dogs. Man, I saw some excellent dog work up there under real tough conditions. Coon weren't moving, number one. There wasn't a lot of tracks on the ground. In fact, areas, he said that when you normally pull into one of those areas and just look around, you're going to see coon everywhere sitting up. We didn't see that. We had some nights we didn't see a single coon sitting up. Other nights we might see one. And so it wasn't, ideal conditions by any stretch. But Randy, I guess anybody that's in the competition game, and especially at the level that he is, they're always trying to make everything kind of a training situation. And I noticed with him, he's trying to let every time those dogs go to the woods be similar to what they'd encounter in a night hunt. He cuts a dog loose. They go hunting really good, really hard. They get in there, they get struck. When that dog gets struck, he cuts another one loose. But of course, he's not expecting that dog to go to that dog that's been struck, and they don't. Another situation I thought was really funny, this young female he has named Farah. She's just about 2 years old, and she's out of Frogger, and she's out of the female that he's had there that's been really good, a good producer for him, called Quick Shot. She's out of the Jigs dog, the full throttle Jigs. There was a deer standing. We pulled up in that side by side, and there was a deer standing back there just on the outside of the woods. And he cut Farrah right, holding the light on that deer, cut her right straight toward that deer. Now, he tells me that this dog has never been broke off a deer, never had to be. She ran within 6 feet of that deer, right past it, and just kept going. Well, the deer whirled around and ran back in front of her again, across her track in front of her. I mean, the way she was heading is right on in there. She sunk on in there probably 300-400 yards and got struck. But it's just fun to watch stuff like that, and see that a dog, just their mind's just focused on what they're supposed to be doing, and that's treeing coons,
Mm-hmm.
And but we generally hunted Farrah and Fran together, and Fran is out of the dog down in Tootsie Hardiman's dog called Jeb, and it's a Mike Gilbert bred dog out of Indiana, and the let's see what she and the old Fran female that I hunted with, and that's what Keston's dog is out of, old Fran. But anyway, so we generally hunted those together, and then we hunted the Bertha female, who was out of Lone Pine, Louie, who was a brother to old Fran, and Biffy Sue, the world champion. Those are kind of the pairs that we hunted. And then one night we hunted the young dog he's got out of Driveline. He calls her Downline, I think. And so anyway, it was a fun time. Good dog work. Love to have had old Fever up there.
Yeah.
But I flew, so that made that a little tough.
Maybe I can show up one year with you.
Yeah, Randy, I'm sure would love to have you up there. And we'll do that. We'll definitely do that. But has anybody contacted you about any dog stuff, anything going on anywhere in the dog world that you know about that I don't, that we could talk about?
It's just quiet right now.
I think so too, and I wonder, is it just because of hunting season? I know the chatter has slowed down a lot on social media, and I don't know if it's because guys are busy hunting or just not hunting. I don't know. I hope it's not the latter. I hope they're getting chances to get out there and go hunting. I saw where Teddy Morgan from West Virginia, who's a bear hunter and coon hunter, made a trip up to Maine, and they had a lot of fun on the bear. He stayed quite a while up there. And they did.
I've seen that.
They did some coon hunting too while he was up there. So
yeah, well, Brad, he went his first year to Maine this year. Him and a bunch of the guys, and had a real good week up there also.
Yeah, well, that's one place I have never hunted. Got a good friend up there, Mark Dufresne. I think you've met Mark probably at Breed Days, but if not, he's a super guy. Taxidermist, wildlife biologist. He's a 5-tool player, that guy is, and he posts some really good stories from time to time about his hunting up there. Somebody from Charleston, West Virginia. I don't know who that is, but must be good folks trying to call in. But
I reckon the new PKC season started off, but I ain't heard.
Yeah,
kind of quiet on that end.
Fever
did finish in the top 16 this year in Florida.
Yeah, so
hopefully I'll get invited down.
Well, you've got a place down here,
for the top 16 hunt.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard
that'll go well.
Yeah, I know that was one of your goals, and that's great. And then also, I think he pretty much finished second in the PKC plot race, I believe.
Yeah, he's second in the breed race.
Yeah,
13th in the state race.
yeah. Well, that's
We'll
cool.
see how this year goes.
We'll put some
I was
Brindle
glad.
in there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I sure hope your back is better, and this MRI reveals what the problem is, Mark, and get that straightened out, because I know you're a hunter and you've got a nice dog there to hunt, and you want to get out in the woods, and that's what we all want to do at this time of year. And I hope all our listeners out there have places to hunt and good dogs to take hunting, and got some kids that they can take along, and just all of the above. Talk to my buddy Keston. I don't know, there may be an opportunity coming for somebody there. I think Keston he's a guy that hunts every night it gets dark, and I'm afraid he's burning himself out. I tell him, you don't have to go every night, It's not mandatory.
Right.
So I don't know what's going to go on there, but we'll let the world know, But anyway, coon hunting is what it is. It's been my lifelong sport. It's been something I love, and I know you have too, Mark. And with that, I'm going to say thank you to all the veterans that are listening. I'm a veteran. I'm proud of it. Proud to have been able to serve back 69 to 73. That was during the Vietnam War, but I did not have to go to Vietnam, and I appreciate that very much. But also to all of you who served in, most of our World War II vets have gone, as my dad has, but there are still some Korean vets around. I mentioned the other day on Facebook how I went over to the Veterans Center and I saw two Korean vets meeting for the first time. They were both in wheelchairs, one of them in oxygen, talking about, when were you there? And one of them remarked, it was a pretty rough place. And to think about the sacrifices that our veterans have made and continue to make. And right now, as we're talking, they're making those sacrifices for us. So to you veterans out there, we salute you. We are extremely proud of you. We pray for you. And we just know that we wouldn't have the country we have now without you. Mark, you got anything to say to our listeners before we shut this thing down?
No, just stay in the woods, chasing them dogs. Thank a lineman for all they've done if you see them out.
Oh, absolutely. Any of these linemen that are working in these areas, especially in the mountains and down here in Florida too, we salute you. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank Buddy Woodbury for making this podcast possible through his W Hunting Supply. Jason Doobie, his right-hand man. Jason works with us continually on the podcast. We thank Colby Moorhead that does the production for us. We also thank Alpha Dog Nutrition, who's come aboard as a sponsor. And we thank Big Mark Zapp with Zapp Predator Calls for providing the prizes for our weekly spins. We've kind of got away from those here lately, but we're going to bring them back and bigger and better. Anyway, for my good friend and partner Mark Miller, I'm Steve Fielder. This is the Gone to the Dogs podcast. We wish you all a very, very successful hunting season. That's all, folks.